Hey everyone! Today's video is a compilation of some of my favorite Dollar Tree DIYs using Tumbling Tower Blocks. I've got 15 awesome projects to share with you all, so let's get started! You will need 48 Tumbling Tower Blocks, which I got from Dollar Tree, and 4 square planks from Dollar Tree as well, which comes in a pack of 6. So buy a pack and that will cover you for DIY 1 and 2. The first thing I do with the 48 blocks is glue 2 blocks together at a time, end to end. I am going to make a 2-piece square wooden riser stand, so it's going to be a set. I'm using wood glue, but you can use whatever glue you prefer. And then once that's all glued, I glue them together like so to form a square. And you just want to make sure you're forming a square and not a rectangle. If you look at the side of the square, and it looks kind of asymmetrical because of that one bottom end glued to the side, then you're gluing it correctly. And in the end, you should end up with 6 squares. To make the first riser, you are going to need 4 squares. And I'm going to glue them on top of each other, alternating that bottom end to the left and right as I stack them. So it kind of makes a nice pattern. And I will be staining this once it's all glued together, so I'm making sure to apply just enough glue, not too much, so that it doesn't seep out onto the wood surface. After I glue 4 together, I glue the remaining 2 together, alternating that bottom end as well. And this is going to be the shorter of the 2. I'm going to be gluing these square planks on the top and bottom of the stacked squares so that it makes a tumbling block sandwich. By itself, these planks are quite thin, but by having the tumbling blocks in between, it gives the illusion that it's a little more substantial than it really is. I gave it a quick sanding just to remove any glue that may have gotten on the surface before I stain. But again, a quick fix if it does is to dab a little matching acrylic paint just to give it some coverage. I love how it's looking already. You can leave these as is, paint them or stain them, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stain them in the shade Dark Walnut from Minwax. With a cloth, I apply that all over. I love this shade. It's a very rich and deep color. Then I stain 4 craft cubes, which I will be gluing on the bottom of the larger riser. A beautiful way to add some height and elevation to your decor, perfect for displaying or showcasing some of your favorite spring decor or any decor. You'll need 16 tumbling blocks and 1 of these small wooden cubes, and I bought both of these at Dollar Tree. So I take the cube and I glue 4 tumbling blocks around the sides of it to form a cross. Then I take 4 more tumbling blocks and glue them standing up at the end of each block like so. And this will be the bottom of the stand, so when I turn it over, you'll see that it's a smooth surface for a vase to be placed on. For the remaining 8 blocks, I glue 2 together at a time, and when I'm done, I'll have 4 sets of these. Then I glue those blocks on the edge like so, and I let the piece dry. I'm going to paint the stand with black acrylic paint, so I brush that all over. This is always my favorite part. And then I let that dry a bit and touch up any areas needed. For the second stand, you'll need 8 tumbling blocks and 5 wooden cubes. Just like the first stand, I glue 4 tumbling blocks around the sides of the cube. And instead of tumbling blocks for the legs, I glue 4 cubes instead. Once it's dried enough, I turn it over and glue the 4 remaining tumbling blocks on the edge. And this stand will be the smaller of the 2. Then I paint it with black acrylic paint, and that is it. I love how both of these turned out. It pairs perfectly with Dollar Tree's cylinder vases, and it only took minutes to do. For the next DIY, I'm going to be making a planter box centerpiece. I'll be using about 40 Tumbling Tower Blocks from Dollar Tree. I stained them in the shade Dark Walnut from Minwax, avoiding applying stain on the ends, which I will touch up later. Once that's dried, I glue 5 blocks together end to end, and I glue 4 sets of these. Then I glue 2 blocks together end to end, and I make 8 sets of that. To assemble the box, I'm going to form a rectangle with the glued blocks. I glue the ends of the longer blocks onto the end of a shorter block, like so. That way it's easier to glue the other end in place. And I make 2 sets of these. For the size of the blocks, I'm also going to be forming a little rectangle, gluing a single block on each end of the glued blocks of 2. But instead of gluing the other side in the same position, I'm going to lay it on its side like so. And this will just be a little added decorative detail for the side of the box. It's kind of like a handle. To fill in the sides, I'm going to be using some of these thick skewers that I have on hand. You can also use Dollar Tree skewers, which are a little bit thinner, or even some round dowels. So I measure that and I trim 5 for each long side. Now you don't want the sticks to go more than halfway the width of the blocks on each side. For the smaller side, I measure and trim as well, and I'll be gluing 3 on each side. I trim the sticks down with my miter shears, and then I paint them with some sample paint, which is similar to a white with hints of light gray. Now I always like to have the smoother side of the blocks showing, which is the side that's face down when gluing together. Not all blocks are equally cut, so the uneven side is where I'm going to glue the sticks so that I have a nice smooth front. I'm using wood glue from Dollar Tree, and I start gluing the middle stick first, and then I glue the ends, and then the remaining 2. And I do the same thing on the second rectangle. For the smaller rectangle, I glue 3 on each side like so. Now I'm going to glue the smaller rectangle on the outer end of the longer rectangle. So the box is going to be a bit narrower, but if you want it to be less narrow, then you can glue the sides in between the longer rectangles. And that will just extend that middle area a bit more. So I glue the sides together and then I clamp it a bit, giving the glue some time to dry. To make the base, I'm going to be using some popsicle sticks and a couple square dowels, but you can also use tumbling blocks in its place. I trim the popsicle sticks and the dowels to fit, and then I stain them with the same dark walnut stain. I glue them in place, and this DIY is done. You will need about 57 tumbling blocks, which I got at Dollar Tree, and 31 jumbo craft sticks. The first thing I did was stain the blocks and craft sticks with Minwax stain in dark walnut. Now I'm going to leave the ends unstained because I will be gluing these ends together, and with wood glue it's always better to glue raw wood to raw wood if possible, since that will produce a much stronger bond. Next I stain the craft sticks, then wipe out the excess. I'm going to glue 3 blocks together, and I'm going to make 17 of these. 16 will be used to make the frame for the size of the box, and 1 will be glued to the bottom middle for extra support. Now I decided to stain the wood first because the stain is dark, and I'm using wood glue, and if that seeps out, the stain just won't absorb well or evenly into the wood. Otherwise, if you want to stain after, just make sure to sand those joints well before staining, or you can just paint it or leave it natural. Once that is done, I'm going to glue the blocks together to form a square. So glue them like so, and I make 4 of these. Then I take 6 craft sticks and place them on top of the square frames, making sure they're spaced out evenly, and then I glue them down. Once the sticks are glued to all 4 squares, I form my box. Now when gluing the sides together, it's important to make sure that one side is glued in the same way or same position as the parallel side, so that when you're looking down at the box, it should be a rectangular shape and not a square, otherwise the sides are going to look uneven. Now with some help, I take some very large rubber bands and I place that around the box just to keep it snug and tight, and I just leave it alone for about 10 minutes before I carefully start working on it again. I'm going to take 6 blocks and I'm going to glue 3 on the edge like so, and this will be used to make the base. So this will actually be the bottom of the box. Then I take some glue and dab a small amount on the tip of each craft stick, then turn over and press the wide side of the block against the glue, making sure it's laying flat on the surface. And then I repeat the process on the other side. I take the 7 remaining craft sticks and measure and cut, making sure it will fit nicely inside the box, and then I glue them down, and that makes the base. I let it dry a bit, then I turn over the box and I glue down the remaining blocks right down the center of the base, and that just gives it extra support. And that is it! This came out so beautiful! It was so easy to make, and yet it looks absolutely high-end. You will need 38 tumbling tower blocks, and I'm going to glue 3 together at a time, and I'm going to end up with 10 of these. Now I'm going to glue these groups of 3s together like so, alternating directions going from vertical to horizontal, and I'm going to do 5 in a row. Then I glue another 5 just on top of that. Then I apply Waverly Antique Wax all over, including the sides and the bottom, which is optional. I'm using Waverly Antique Wax for all the DIYs you'll see here, but you can definitely use whatever you prefer. This time I wipe the whole thing down with a damp cloth. I really wipe it down, and this will give it a very rustic look, which I love. Then I glue 2 tumbling tower blocks together to form an L, and I make 4 of these. I place them down on each corner just like that, and then I glue them down. Finally, you will need about 3 bamboo skewers. I was going to use 6 of these, but I ended up only using 3. I measure them to fit on all 4 sides and mark where I need to cut. Then I apply the antique wax just to match, and then I glue them in place. I tried gluing them with hot glue, but it kept popping off, so wood glue worked best for me. And I didn't really need a clamp it because the fit was just tight enough and it held in place. And as you can see, you can definitely use the whole 6 skewers, placing 2 on each side. And we are done. How adorable this turned out. Beautiful and so rustic. Dollar Tree has a variety of beautiful adhesive wall tiles, and for this project, I will be using this gorgeous blue and white tile. I'll also be using this crafter square round plywood. I'm going to trim the tile to fit nicely on the wood round. So first, I'm going to peel off the backing to expose the adhesive, and I place the wood round right on top. I trim off the excess tile with a utility knife. Now the adhesive on the tile is only attached and sealed on the outer end, so once I trim that out, the tile will separate. So I peel the adhesive off the wood and I attach the tile onto the wood using a multi-surface glue, but definitely use your preferred glue. I'm going to be using about 32 tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree. I'll also be using 32 wooden cubes from Dollar Tree as well. First thing I need to do is to make sure that the cubes are all similar in height, since the wood round will be resting on top of them. I'm going to keep the blocks in their natural color, but you can certainly paint or stain them as well. Next, I'm going to glue a cube to one of the blocks, like so. As I mentioned earlier, the wood round will be resting on top of the cubes, which will not be visible. The cubes are just there to provide some support in gluing the blocks to the round. To glue the blocks, I start by placing 4 blocks around the wood round, positioning them opposite each other. Then I apply some glue on top of the cube to glue it in place. And then I glue the rest of the blocks, spacing them out evenly. Now I'm using wood glue, but you can certainly use hot glue as well. You can also add more blocks. The blocks are spaced out, but you can definitely fill in those gaps. And then I glue the rest of the blocks, spacing them out evenly. And this little tray is done. You can place little plants or anything decorative on top. I really love how this turned out. Why you will need 74 tumbling tower blocks. So 1 box, which comes with 72, plus 2 more pieces. I glue 3 blocks together at a time and I end up with 14 of these. I'm going to glue 5 of them in a row, separated by 1 block positioned vertically in between and in the ends. And I make 2 sets of these. For the 4 left over, I glue 2 at a time like so. Once that is dried, I'm going to glue them together to form a rectangle. And I glue the smaller sides in between the longer sides. To make the base, you will need about 17 jumbo craft sticks. I believe I got these at Dollar Tree, and I lay them out side by side, then place a rectangle box on top and trace the inner area of the box. Then I trim the sticks down. I'm going to add some color using Waverly Antique Wax, and I do this before applying the base, but you can definitely stain or paint after once everything is complete. I do like to paint underneath, and once that base is on, there's going to be areas that will be a little hard to reach, so I just paint it all before. Once I finish the rectangle, I apply the wax on the tumbling blocks and craft sticks. To make the base, I place 6 blocks on each side, then I glue them in place. Then I place the craft sticks down, and I'm just seeing how well they lay because I don't want there to be any gaps. I want a tight fit. And then I glue the sticks down like so, and I did have to cut a little piece to fill the little gap in the end. Look how gorgeous this looks. Now you can stop here. I think it's adorable just like that, but I do want to add handles. So I glue 4 tumbling blocks together to form a C, with 2 blocks in the middle laying flat and 2 on the ends laying on its side. Then I apply the wax to match. I glue it in place and I am done. This came out so beautiful. You can use it as a planter, a flower box, or even as a decorative organizer. And the best part is that this costs just about $8 to make. I bought this pack of 4 tea light candle holders from Dollar Tree, and I wanted to make a rustic wooden holder for them. And I'm going to be using a box of Dollar Tree's Tumbling Tower Blocks to build it. The blocks come in a pack of 72. I'm going to be using about 58 blocks, leaving me left with 14 blocks, which I will be using in the next DIY. I make a square with 4 blocks and I glue them together like so, and I make 4 sets of these. I'm using wood glue that I got from Dollar Tree, but you can use your preferred glue, and I'm making sure to wipe out any excess glue that squeezes out before it dries in case I want to stain it later. Next, I gather 21 blocks. I take a block and lay it on its side, and then I glue 4 blocks flat side by side next to that. And then I take another block and glue it on its side again, just like the first one. And then I glue down another 4 flat side by side next to that. Then I just repeat the pattern with the rest of the 21 blocks, ending with a block on its side. Then I make another matching set with 21 more blocks, and these will make the sides of the wooden holder. So to assemble, I stand up one of the rectangle pieces, and then I make sure the square pieces fit nicely like so. I apply glue on the left and right sides of the square, and then I attach the other rectangle side. I'm going to add some color with Waverly Antique Wax. I apply that with a foam brush, applying in sections, and then with a damp cloth I wipe out the excess before it dries. And I really wipe it down so that this will dry to a nice rustic shade and texture. So I just continue applying the color all over and wiping out the excess before it dries with a damp cloth. This dries beautifully. I place the candle holders in them, which fits perfectly, and I drop in the tea light candles. I also bought this 4-pack votive candles with a vanilla scent from Dollar Tree, and these also fit in the candle holders. But looking at it, I didn't want the votive candles sticking out, so I replaced the glass with these larger ones instead. I really love how this turned out. And I'm going to use 8 of them for this DIY. I'll also be using this polyester desk organizer from Dollar Tree. I love the pattern on this one. And 1 rectangle wood plank or slat. This came in a pack of 6, and I had 1 left from a prior project already stained with watered down acrylic paint. First, I take 2 blocks and glue them end to end. Then I take another block and I glue that standing upright on the end of one side. And then I glue another block on the opposite side. And then I repeat that and make another set. You can paint or stain these, but I am going to leave it natural. We are almost done. This DIY takes only minutes to complete. Then I drop in the plank. And I place the glued blocks underneath the organizer, 1 on each end. And that is it! A very easy hack to turn this desk organizer into a little planter. I love how it turned out. I picked up this little textured vase from Dollar Tree, and I want to make a wooden stand for it. For this project, I'm going to be using about 24 tumbling tower blocks. I want the wood to be dark, so I'm going to stain in the shade Dark Walnut from Minwax, avoiding the ends, which I will touch up later. I start by gluing 2 blocks together end to end, and I'm going to make a total of 6 sets. Then I glue 3 blocks together end to end, and I make 4 sets. Next, I take 4 glued blocks of 2, and I'm going to glue them together to form a rectangle like so. I start by making a U shape or C shape, and then I glue the remaining side. For the glue blocks of 3, I glue 3 together, forming a U, and I make 2 of those. Then I apply some glue on the ends of the U-shaped blocks, and I turn that over and glue that on top of the rectangle on the shorter side like so. And I glue the other U the same way on the opposite side. For the base, there are a few alternatives. You can get one of those Dollar Tree planks and trim it down to fit with a miter box and saw, and have it rest on top of the blocks like so. Or you can have that go inside of the rectangle, gluing some tumbling blocks inside to hold it in place, or you can use some square dowels in place of the blocks. But I wanted a perfectly fitted base, since the rectangle base was a little bit narrower, so I trimmed down this Dollar Tree wood square for a perfect fit. And I just scored it several times with a utility knife. I stain it with the same dark walnut color, and I drop it in place, and this DIY is done. You will need 16 tumbling tower blocks, and I got a pack of 72 from Dollar Tree. I glue 4 together at a time, and I make 4 sets. I paint them white with acrylic paint, and I apply that all over front and back. When that is dried, I sand the edges as well as the glue joints in between. On top of the blocks, I'm going to be gluing these wooden letters that I got from Dollar Tree, and since it is still February, I'm going to spell out love. I paint the letters with gold acrylic paint, and this DIY is actually going to be part of DIY number 3, as you'll see later, but I thought the piece was perfect on its own as well. I glue the letters on top of the blocks. Now you can spell out whatever word you want, make as many blocks as you need. This is such an easy craft. I'm going to be using 16 tumbling tower blocks and about 5 craft cubes, both from Dollar Tree. I'm going to glue 4 blocks together to form a cross, and to get all the sides even, I'm going to cut down 2 blocks to about 1 5/8 of an inch, and I just use a miter box and saw to do that. Once that's cut, I glue them together like so to form a cross. Then I apply the glue on the 4 ends, and I take a block, stand it upright, and glue those together like so. And I do that for all sides. And this is going to be a perfect base for a cylinder vase, or even those little bowls that I used in the first project. Then I get a craft cube and glue 4 tumbling blocks around it. Then I applied glue on the ends and attached a craft cube on each block. I turn it over and I glue 4 additional blocks, standing upright on the edge of each cube. I'm going to add some color using Waverly Antique Wax, and I apply that with a damp cloth and I wipe off the excess, and this will give it a very rustic finish when it dries. It's so adorable. I just love how it turned out. I place a glass bowl and a cylinder vase on top, both from Dollar Tree, and I am done. The next project is going to be another quick one. I'm going to be using this wood piece that caught my attention at my local Dollar Tree. So first I paint it with metallic gold acrylic paint, and I just brush that on all over, making sure it's completely coated. But I think if I were to do it again, I would have just spray painted it gold, just to expedite this part. It did take a couple coats to get it completely covered because I wanted it opaque. And I'm using the letter blocks that I made from DIY number 2, and this really is just a continuation of that DIY. And I'm going to be gluing them right on the individual squares, like so, pushing them close together with 2 letters on top and 2 on the bottom. And I am done. If you want, you can glue greenery on top with a bow in the center, but I like it just like that. I've had these 3-pack canvases from Dollar Tree for a while, so I wanted to use it for this DIY. I'm going to paint it olive green, so I just brush that on all over, and I want it to be opaque, so as soon as it dries, I add a couple more coats. I'm going to make a frame using 10 Tumbling Tower Blocks from Dollar Tree, and I'll be staining them a dark walnut color. So with a small piece of cloth, I wipe that on all over except for the ends because I will be gluing those together. To make the frame, I glue them together just like so to form a small rectangle that will fit perfectly with a small canvas. I'm using wood glue that I got from Dollar Tree. You can also use hot glue as well, since we won't be putting any weight on the frame. I got a 6-pack of fall words from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using Hello Autumn. I paint it white using Waverly chalk paint, so I apply that all over the front, and once that dries, it's time to assemble. I apply hot glue on the front edges of the canvas and then lay that down on the frame. Then I turn it over and glue down Hello Autumn. And I place that right on the bottom center of the frame. To stand up and give it support, I hot glue 1 tumbling block on the back, and that is it. So quick and easy, but absolutely adorable. For this project, you will need 75 tumbling blocks, which I got at Dollar Tree. Now 1 box comes with 72 blocks, so rest assured you will have plenty left over for another amazing project. You'll also need a straight edge and glue. You can use hot glue if you desire, but I highly recommend using a good quality wood glue on this one. So here I'm gluing 5 blocks together, and I'm going to make 8 of these. And once that's done, I glue 3 blocks together and I make 8 of those as well. Next, you will need 2 spools of Dollar Tree's jute cord, and just like the blocks, you will have plenty left over for another amazing project when you're done. So I'm going to wrap the blocks with a cord. I dab hot glue on one end and then I start wrapping. Now I like to apply hot glue all around in the beginning, at least for the first few rows. Then I apply a few dabs here and there, and especially all around where the 2 blocks meet, just to seal it even more. There's quite a bit of fraying, too much for my liking, so after I finished wrapping, I did take a candle lighter and quickly and very carefully waved it over the cord until those frayed areas melted away. I always do this over my kitchen sink just to be safe. You can also go outside and do it over the barbecue grill. Otherwise, with a good pair of scissors, just trim out those frayed areas. For the smaller blocks, you will need to completely cover it, including the sides, so I do the same thing and apply hot glue on one end, and once that's completely covered, instead of stopping, I keep going. I apply a little hot glue on the top part and slowly and carefully wind and press it down. And it's going to kind of look like an oval spiral. Now it's important to press down as you're winding so that it'll lay flat and not bulge out. Then I cut the cord and work on the other end. I find it easier to wind from the outer end working inward as opposed to the inner end winding out. Now I did end up completely covering all 8 of the smaller blocks, but you really only need to cover 4 of them. That was an oversight on my part, because as you'll see later, you're not even going to see the ends of the other 4. I'm going to form a rectangle with the smaller blocks, so I hot glue them like so, and in the end I will have 2 rectangles, one for the top and one for the base. Next, I work on the larger blocks and I hot glue them together so that they form an L shape, and I'll make 4 of these. So I hot glue them down onto the rectangle base, then I add hot glue on the top of each L-shaped block and quickly and carefully place the last rectangle on top. You'll need 12 Super Jumbo craft sticks to make the base and lid cover. To make the base, place the jumbo craft sticks side by side, then lay the lantern on top and mark with a pencil. And this is the area that will be cut. I glue the sticks together, and once that's dry, I apply hot glue on the bottom of the lantern and place it down on the craft sticks. Then I repeat to make the lid. I measure, cut, and glue together the remaining craft sticks. To make sure they don't fall apart, I glue 4 smaller craft sticks onto the lid like so. I glue 6 tumbling blocks together to form a rectangle, then I glue it down onto the craft sticks. And on top of that, I glue 5 blocks, making sure that they are evenly spaced out. For the handle, I braid jute cord. You can also use jute rope, and I secure that to the sides of the rectangle with hot glue. Then I hot glue jute cord all around the bottom base as well as the lid, and you really don't have to, but this gives it that finishing touch and makes it look well put together. And one more detail that can't be missed, I take bamboo skewers and I measure them diagonally like so, then cut and hot glue them in place to make an X. And we're done! How beautiful this turned out! I absolutely love this piece, and I hope you do too. Thank you for watching. Take care. Until next time. Bye-bye.